Good day, everyone. We're starting a new podcast series with a federal election upon us. And I've got current MP Dean Allison with us today. He's first up in our series of candidate interviews. I'm going to be doing basically the same structure of interview. It's going to be a free-form interview covering topics that everybody wants to know about. But candidates are going to get 2 minutes to do an intro. There's going to be about 20 minutes of conversation and a 2-minute summation at the end for anything that we didn't get to, or sum up any points that each candidate wants to make on different points. So with that, I'll just let Dean have his time, and away you go.
Sure. So I think this election's about a number of things. I think it's probably what I've been hearing the most of is the cost of living and where people have been at over the last number of years. I mean, we've seen rents double, mortgage payments double, we've seen the cost of living go up, we've seen it cost more for groceries, we've seen more record use of food banks, et cetera, et cetera. And so I guess, what we are saying is that we want to put people back in charge of their lives and remove government that's been all intrusive. So there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, I think it starts with, and we'll probably address some of this during, some of the questions and things we're going to do, but we obviously need to get the resource sector going. We need to get our manufacture going. We got a threat of tariffs right now that are probably more than just a threat. That's going to show itself up in the next couple of weeks. The first date will be April the 2nd, and then there'll be other dates that will manufacture themselves in. So what we propose is really giving people a chance to get back in charge of their lives, which means really reducing some of the spending the government's been doing over the last number of years. We've seen this past Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, spend more money than all the other prime ministers put together. So if we think about that, the debt was about $600 billion. It's now over $1.2 trillion. That's with a T, $1 trillion. And that, when you spend that much money, that causes inflation. Inflation then causes things to go up in terms of price. And that's the unknown tax that a lot of people have been actually dealing with, is the fact that everything costs more and has costed more over the last, 4 or 5 years. So we'll talk a bit more about the platform, some of the things we're doing. It's only early stages. I don't know when you'll be seeing this video, but we're in the first week right now, and there's only been 3 or 4 actual announcements that have come through. We've certainly talked about, axing the carbon tax for people, trying to build more homes, because once again, one of the reasons why housing has cost so much is that there's a little of it, and there's lots of people looking for it. We talked about sort of fixing the budget and then also stopping the crime. So I'm hoping we'll get a chance to talk about more of those things during the course of the interview.
Okay, so we'll jump right into the tariff question. It's been a moving target from the get-go. It continues to be. As we prepare this conversation, I saw a clip just before it came in that the meeting between the Prime Minister and Trump had just concluded. More positive than before, but no solid information. Just what's your feeling on that in general? Do the Conservatives have any direction? Because it's a moving target, can you even have a plan against it?
Yeah, so I think part of our plan has always been, how do we make Canada stronger? I mean, there's many opportunities. Interprovincial trade is a great example. The IMF came out, International Monetary Fund, for those that don't know acronyms, and we got 1,000 of them in politics.
1,000 of them, especially Ottawa.
Basically came out and said that because of interprovincial trade barriers, the effective tariff rate that we tariff ourselves because of regulation, red tape, alcohol is an example we know here because of the wine industry, big time, how difficult it is to sell in other provinces. Yeah. It's actually easier to sell in other countries, in other states, than it is to sell to other provinces. So what they said, the effective tariff rate, the IMF said that it was effectively 21%. So we start looking at the tariffs that they were proposing, 25%, is it on this and that? I was talking to someone from Ford yesterday. They said that they're now looking at content. So basically, we're going to say if 60% of the components made in Canada are from the U.S.
They're getting into variables. Absolutely.
Crazy. And that changes. And that may change again before this video goes out. So what I was led to believe in talking about the automotive, and that's one of the big issues, not to mention manufacturing, which is also critical, is that, so let's just say we had 40% left Canadian content, 25% on 40% is then 10%. Is everyone following the bouncing ball? It's crazy.
Nuts.
So a 10% tariff is better than 25% tariff, even though a 10% tariff is still not good. So what we're saying is we should have had our economy should be stronger. We should be dealing with what we can deal with, which is oil and gas, making sure it's being built, pipelines, getting it to markets, all these things that we could have done as a country to make us stronger, we haven't been able to do over the last number of years. So it makes us very vulnerable. Obviously, our biggest customer is the United States, obviously, and because it's proximity. But now we've got a situation where the landscape is changing every day. We don't know what it's going to be, what it could be, and it's made us very vulnerable. So there are definitely things we could do as a country to make sure that we are better prepared to withstand that. We've got trade deals with the European Union. We've got it with Asia Pacific. We've done all those things. But we don't sell a ton of stuff
But the
there.
core of that, I don't want to cut off your point, so remember where you're at, but the core of that would be manufacturing
Absolutely.
in general, which, you know, Trump is saying it's gone from the U.S. overseas, but it's also gone from Canada. And I always use E.D. Smith as the best example back in the 90s, talking to Llewellyn Smith when they were at a financial point where they could crush Concord grapes from up on Ridge Road, put them in those big plastic vats, ship them to their plant in Alabama, process, package them, and send them back as grape juice, cheaper than just doing it in Winona. So, you know, and that's...
Well, and that talks about the competitiveness of Canada. Like that's an issue, and you're bang on in terms of dealing with U.S., Canada. I mean, Mexico's part of the equation for cheaper manufacturing, but I think over the years we've kind of hauled out our manufacturing for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
It could be the price of energy. It could be taxation policy. It could be a number of factors.
How do you get it back?
Well, I mean,
or do you worry about getting it back?
No, we need to get it back. You absolutely have to get it back. These are some of the gooder, that's not a word, better paying jobs. And quite frankly, if you've got manufacturers, people are earning a decent living and supporting their family. You need, I mean, service economy is not going to make it happen.
And we need a staple of the 50s and 60s,
right,
factory work. Right?
Absolutely. So we got to, but the policies we set, taxation, carbon tax, regulation, red tape, all these things need to be addressed in a way that makes it easier to do it, not more complicated. I think it's fair to say, it doesn't matter what kind of business you are or where you're at, you've got to deal with regulation at the local level. You've got to deal with in Canada, in Niagara, you've got the advantage of dealing with one more layer of government, the region, the province, and the feds. We have got to do a better job of streamlining that stuff. We've got to look at how we can reduce and eliminate red tape and some of this bureaucratic mess. It makes it tougher to do. But we also got to deal with energy. I mean, we look at the carbon tax. One of the things we said we cut. You got a carbon tax on a farmer that's got to put the ground, they're going to harvest it, all that stuff. We put it on a trucker that's got to take it to, I mean, trucking, there's some cost, the billions of dollars it would cost down the road if we continue to raise the carbon tax, what it would actually mean to truckers in this country. It doesn't make us competitive when you got people in the U.S. being able to do that without a carbon tax. So there's a number of things we could do. We talked about capital gains. It's another thing that was actually, they say they're going to remove. I don't believe them, but at the end of the day, that's one of the things we said we would cut. Capital gains tax is for small business people. That's sometimes a retirement plan. So you got to look at you got to look at the incentives that we do for people. And if we've got just a country that's run by government workers, well, who's paying their salaries? It's small business people. It's SMEs, small medium-sized enterprises. All these other kinds of things. We've got to do a much better job to not only attract the investment, but also keep it as well.
So if you could summarize, say, a three-prong attack on tariffs, how could you summarize it? Because we covered a lot of ground in a very short amount of time.
Well, I think, first of all, we need to take care of our own economy, right? We've got to be less vulnerable. That's a given, because we don't know what's going to happen with tariffs. It may change every day.
But then you have Trump turn around and say, oh, you're going to improve your economy by improving overseas partnerships? Well, we're going to tariff everybody then.
Well, I think he was referring to the threat of tariffs together. I mean, we're going to do that. But if we're going to, if we're going to do that to do something, then he's going to respond in a very negative way. But selling goods to other markets, no. But I mean, it's like France, for example. We sell about, I think it's around $10 billion a year to France. Well, we sell like almost $1 trillion to the U.S. So it's like the market's
drop in the bucket.
It's like nothing. So those relationships are there. Well, of course we need to work on them, but I also think we need to look at trying to repair whatever relationship we have with the U.S. because at the end of the day, that's still our best market at this time. It may change over time, but we've got
in 4 years.
We got to figure out a way to get our goods down there. So
well, hopefully that phone call today might be a step for whoever.
Let's be honest. The reason that all started was because of how Trudeau was sniping and backstabbing. It's personal.
They both.
So Trudeau's gone. Let's just see. I mean, at the end of the day,
Well, it's funny that
customer.
the lead comment on the U.S. media, the sources that I saw on that were there was no name calling because there was some no obscenities. So before those two got into it, and let's move on, right? Sorry. So take care of our own. But
well, we've got to set a climb in Canada here, so we're better for business, which is reducing the cost. Carbon taxes is also making sure that we're doing what we can do to foster a great environment for people to start.
Now, are those points though sort of general? Because I wanted to move on to the economy. Is there any other points in the economy you wanted to make? Because those kinds of points are taking care of our own and creating a more streamlined system. That's basic good business, right? So,
yeah, it is. And unfortunately,
so does that transition into what you want to do as a party on the economy in general?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the first thing we've talked about since day one was axe the tax, right? I mean, we've been talking about that for a year, right? In terms of that, that'll be a large step in moving that direction. And then, more recently, so the capital gains that kind of happened never really happened. It was in, but it's not. It hasn't gone through legislation yet, even though CRA that's a Canadian revenue agency. Everyone knows the CRA in Canada.
Yeah, they do.
It's gone through that
They're
stuff.
looking over their shoulder.
So that's the other thing that we need to figure out because once again we got to make sure people have more money in their pockets. Building homes is another thing. We could talk about that in a second, but that's all part of the economy piece too, right?
Now, how do the feds fit in on home building?
So I think there's a couple things that they could be looking at. So what we said we would do is we incentivize towns, cities to build more homes. So hit targets of 10%, whatever that number is. We don't control the red tape that happens. And you talk to any builder, any developer, it's a nightmare in terms of trying to get access to building permits, et cetera, et cetera. So they're going to have to figure that out. That's done at a local level. There's no question about that. But
multiple local levels.
Multiple local levels. So that'll be one thing that we need to do is incentivize local towns to be able to cut the red tape because they ultimately at the end of the day make the job easier or tougher. I think the second thing is that one of the things we've said we'd do is we'd actually tax the HST on first-time home buyers on homes that are under 1.3 million. That makes a huge difference. I mean, that's if you look at $1 million at 13%, and we'd encourage the provinces to do their part as well. $1 million, that's $130,000. That's a big nut.
When you consider tack it onto a mortgage and everything, how long does it take to pay off?
And you look at that and you factor in that resales of homes, that doesn't factor that in. It makes it difficult. So I think that would be a great step to help with the housing market. That's not the only thing, but I think that's a good first step to also encourage people that are trying to get in at those levels to be able to afford it.
Okay. Did we cover the general economy points you wanted to make there?
I think for now. If I think of anything else, I can do it in the wrap.
Okay. Yeah. So you've touched on, let's say, well, not necessarily affordable housing, but housing in general. Is there any other fundamental points that you see when you knock on a door or when people come into your constituency office? What's the front burner items other than the economy?
Yeah, I still think they're like the number one. I mean, we see a lot of younger people that are still living in their parents' basements. Once again, they can't afford to be able to do something. So the cost of housing is a big issue for sure, and actually the cost of living in general continues to be the number one issue that I hear.
Okay, so with the provincial election, just the snap election call, I just want to touch on briefly because it was an issue with the provincial, just the timing and how. Do you have any concerns about the tightness of the window?
I mean, no. I mean, elections. I mean, generally speaking, elections are not long in Canada. I think the provincial one was shorter than the minimum requirements. I think the minimum requirement is it's 5 weeks times 35 days, 36 days.
Yeah, it's an odd number of days.
It's like 35 to 55 days. Let's just say that, give or take a day. So, the shortest period of time, over the course of my career, I've had the shortest ones, I've had longer ones as far as that goes. But I think it is what it is. We're in there. I think the weather, a shorter time frame in the winter makes it more difficult. But I think there's still a normal size turnout. I don't think it adversely affected that in any way, shape, or form. So I think we'll see what happens. Good. But I think we're going to the spring. We're starting now. Weather's getting better. Makes it easier for people to knock on doors and then go out and vote. But if people are motivated because they're upset about something, I find that's the biggest motivator to get people to vote. Is they're unhappy with and they want change.
Yep. So you mentioned about having run different campaigns. You've been around the block several times. Is this your 6th or 7th?
Ninth.
Ninth. I missed a couple.
Yeah.
So, maybe just touch on why you're the right guy for this time in general.
Yeah, I know. I think, for me, I mean, what I'm hearing is that people want change in a big way. And, as a small business guy, I do understand some of the issues that people go through.
Well, you might want to explain what your background is, though, because a lot of people only know you as an MP.
Yeah, no, that's possible. Yeah, so I've owned a number of businesses over time. It was in the restaurant industry, a service industry, and so over the course of time, I've run multiple different restaurants and different brands. There was Tim Hortons, Wendy's, some bagel stores, stuff like that. So I've had to make payroll. I understand that kind of stuff, and I think anyone in small business probably at some point or another is probably had to put their payroll on their credit card, when they're starting up or dealing with tough times. So I do understand. So I think the challenge when people make laws is the laws of unintended consequences. In other words, a government or a body, a municipal government, a provincial government says, hey, we're going to have a law. And then what happens is, because of that law, there's this law of unintended consequences.
Chain reaction.
So that's something that, was important to me to try and understand and to make sure that it doesn't happen. But I do hear the fact that people want change. People are frustrated. They have less money. They're not spending. I mean, under our previous government with Stephen Harper, I think at the end there, we're saving families, $3,000-$4,000 a year in being able to do that. And I think people are they're not feeling the same kind of access when it comes to disposable cash at the end of the day. And like I said, mortgages are eating up, groceries are eating up, those kinds of things that normally wasn't the case.
So with yourself, though, with your business background, I'll say personal life as opposed to MP life, if you will, that you think that, when you're talking about the issues of today, more money for families and things like that, that gives you a better grasp of what needs to be done?
Yeah, I mean, I do understand what it takes to run a business, and I do understand how complicated it is and all the challenges that is done. And at the end of the day, I mean, we need to always continue people to start businesses, but it's not easy. I mean, once again, if it was easy, everyone would do it. But I think what we need to understand is that when people start businesses, they create wealth, they hire people, and they're able to do that stuff. And when government's there, chipping away and always taking stuff, it makes it very difficult. There's only one taxpayer at the end of the day. It's you and I. It's people out there. Many layers of government want access to those taxes, and I think we're very overtaxed as a country. But I understand that, and I think that at the end of the day, that we need to figure out ways to take money from government and put it back into people's pockets.
So with any plan to do that, how, I don't want to say how can you, but the U.S. looms and the impacts of other ongoing issues. How do you set a target with any confidence or a strategy more than a target?
But I think first of all, I think what we need to do is take care of our own country. In other words, we're always going to have those threats. Hopefully, not the same ones we've had over the last little while. So
ongoing issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Ongoing issues that happen. Life happens, right? Issues, events happen. But I think that one of the things we need to do is we need to make sure that we can get our oil and gas to market. You realize there was over 9 countries in the world that came to us saying, we want your LNG, liquefied natural gas. We want your LNG. And basically what happened was Trudeau said there's not a case for that. So there are a couple things going on here. 9 countries, okay? So we got Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, Greece, Latvia. 9 countries in the world said we want your LNG. We said, nah, there's not a case. Wait a second. That's not correct. We actually do have a case, and we need to get that. Second thing is...
Well, what does not have a case mean?
It's not profitable. It doesn't make,
it's not worth their while.
It doesn't make sense. It's not worth their while.
Okay.
Right? So, Japan, cut a deal with the U.S. where they said they wrote a check or committed to writing a check for $1 trillion, saying we need it. We need your energy. Germany was another one that acted. So I think what we need to do is we need to get our resources to market. We need to build pipelines because at the end of the day, we should be energy self-sufficient as a country. And if you think about it, we spend a lot of time and money in terms of reducing our emissions on oil and gas, whereas we're getting oil from Venezuela and Saudi Arabia. They're shipping it over in tankers. They don't care about emissions and all those kinds of things. Let's go back to China for a second. China is building anywhere from 1 to 2 coal-fired plants every week to meet their demand. Their emissions are more than every developed country in the world. One of the things we could do is get them LNG, which would be a cleaner gas, a cleaner source of energy. We should be doing that right now, but there's a lot of laws on the books, that, C69. When I get into the numbers, people's eyes gloss over and say, like, what are you talking about? Just there's legislation on the books that makes it almost impossible for us to get our resources to market. So we should be doing things like that because that makes a difference. So if you think about a lot of the manufacturing in Ontario, manufacturers in Ontario actually provide and resources build products for their energy industry. So that's one of the ways you sort of take care of yourself and make sure that you've got a strong economy within. Interprovincial trade barriers. As I said, effective tariff rate 21%. We need to figure that out, and we need to do a better job. The provinces do that and deal with that kind of stuff, but the provinces need to get together and they need to start doing that. Same thing was you come into Ontario and you're a doctor and you can't practice medicine. We have a shortage of doctors. We got to recognize foreign credentials faster. They still have to be vetted and made sure that they're competent.
Upgrades and things.
Whatever it is, right? But then we need to do that. But now I'm a doctor in Ontario. I can't go to BC. Like, it's ridiculous to me that the amount of loopholes, the amount of barriers, the amount of red tape we have that make it very difficult for people to be able to practice. Same goes for electricians, carpenters, et cetera, across this country. We need to do a better job of recognizing those skills across all provinces.
Good. So I just have one last question. So you knock on a door, and Joe answers and says, what makes you fundamentally different from voting for any other party? Why should I vote for you?
Well, because we actually believe...
You being you and the party as a whole.
Yeah, no, because we actually believe that you as a taxpayer deserve to keep more of your hard-earned money. I also believe that we are the ones that are going to try and jumpstart this economy. We got businesses leaving left, right, and center, even before the last tariff threat. All kinds of people leaving our country because of the red tape, the cost of living, et cetera, and for other places, not just the U.S., all kinds of places all around the world. So what we want to do is we want to make Canada, listen, we've got the most educated workforce. We got all the great natural resources, all this water. We have a great country that, quite frankly, people should be trying to get into our country, and there has been. Don't get me wrong, there has been. I think we just need to make sure that we give people hope again, and we give people a reason to say we want to grow our family here in Canada.
Okay, well, we're in our ballpark time, as I outlined at the start. So is there anything you want to mention, Dean, any ground we didn't cover, or summarize some of the points that we've already covered?
So listen, I think that a couple things. When it comes to crime, we're seeing issues with fentanyl. We're seeing issues with guns coming across the border. There's a lot of issues that, quite frankly, we need to do a better job at. So we're looking at, trying to do a better job of locking up repeat violent offenders. There was a stat that said there was 40 individuals that were actually arrested 6,000 times out in Vancouver. But that's not everybody. That's certain people that are causing the problem. Let's deal with that and support our men and women in uniform that, quite frankly, are very frustrated. We're also looking at raising the personal deduction for seniors from 24 to 34. So once again, seniors are having a harder time. That would keep more money in their pockets as well. So I think there's a number of things we can do across the front, across all fields, and we'll see more of it as the platform is rolled out over the coming weeks.
Very good. Thanks very much for your time today, and good luck on the run.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.